Hi comrades, my name is Mike Pappas. I'm a physician in New York City and member of Left Voice. When I went to med school, I wanted to be a doctor so I could help people. But what do I do when I'm caring for a patient during a pandemic who's in respiratory failure, about to be placed on a ventilator, and he asked me who's gonna pay for it? Another patient I saw, 45 years old, made an appointment specifically to talk about COVID-19. He was extremely concerned for his elderly father, who he lived with and cared for, had chronic diseases that put him at risk for dying from COVID if he got it. He told me, "I'm scared I'll bring COVID home and kill my dad." He had to go to work in order to pay rent, pay for food, and utilities. The ultimatum of US capitalism: work and risk your health, or don't work and risk your survival. This is the case for millions of essential workers in the US who work in warehouses, delivery, transit, meat plants, and on the fields picking fruits. These workers are disproportionately Black, Brown, Asian, and undocumented. Black and brown communities most affected by racist police brutality and mass incarceration, by unemployment and housing precarity, and by pollution and toxic environments are also twice as likely to die from coronavirus. COVID-19 only magnifies the systemic racism that has always been the bedrock of US capitalism, forged from chattel slavery. Over the last several weeks, we've seen an uprising against the pandemic within a pandemic, the systemic racism and the police who execute 1,000 people per year with impunity. The ruling class requires racist police repression. Police protect property, not people, and the ruling class needs them now more than ever to maintain the current economic order. The mass mobilizations after the murder of George Floyd transformed the political scene. We healthcare workers unequivocally condemn police terror and join the protests. We've only seen police brutality increase as people rise up. I was illegally arrested by the NYPD while volunteering as a medic. Trump's disastrous handling of the pandemic was followed by the biggest economic crisis since the Great Depression. The government broke all records with their bailout for big business while setting aside a meager portion to mitigate the impact on unemployment and workers' income. Almost 20 million people remain jobless even after reopening, which means most of them are left without health care as well. As healthcare workers literally sacrifice our lives on the front lines caring for COVID-19 patients, oftentimes lacking appropriate equipment, Republicans are prioritizing the economy and sending workers to die at their workplaces. This shows that the government only cares about Wall Street, desperately seeking a rebound on the economy, but it is on us, workers, who are paying the cost with our own lives. Frankly, the Democrats are no better. While Trump oozes with racist rhetoric every time he opens his mouth, Democratic governors and mayors were giving free rein to their police departments to repress protests. The brutal repression that occurred at my arrest occurred with the support of a Democratic mayor and a Democratic governor. Democrats in Congress or those running for office pay lip service to protesters, but they're just as responsible for maintaining a system of oppression and inequalities that perpetuates poverty and racism and police brutality. Trump has ramped up attacks against immigrants. He has bragged about the construction of the wall at the border with Mexico and kept children in cages, all while blocking the new arrival of refugees from Central America. Through an agreement with Mexican President Lopez Obrador, Biden and Trump blame China for economic crisis and for the pandemic, or they blame Mexican workers for the low wages. The Chinese government is no friend of labor with their repression on Hong Kong protesters. But what Democrats and Republicans are hiding is that it is American capitalists with the government on their side who keep wages at poverty levels and precarious working conditions. From the pages of Left Voice, La Izquierda Diario International Network, and with the political organizations behind the newspapers, we've put forward a radically different program to face the pandemic. We've pushed for massive tests everywhere, appropriate PPE, paid leave, a freeze on layoffs, nationalization of all healthcare under workers and workers' committees, at workplaces to guarantee our own safety. The working class is bearing the brunt of the pandemic and is the target of racist police repression. We are the majority of the population, and we are the ones making everything turn. In the past 2 months, there has been a dramatic increase in strikes and workplace actions. Dock workers shut down 29 ports along the West Coast in solidarity with the movement against police terror. Workers are walking out not only in the fight for safe working conditions, but also protesting racist police brutality. The power to disrupt the economy is in our hands. We are witnessing a shift to the left in political situation, with many unions mobilizing for Black lives and voting to kick police out of the AFL-CIO. The near future is ripe with crisis and contradictions. We are literally to see more social unrest and class struggles. This will open for us the opportunity to take back our organizations, the unions, which have been hijacked by the rotten bureaucracy who ties our fates to the boss's parties and plays by their rules. It is the militant rank and file who can accomplish the task of democratizing and revitalizing our unions by shoving aside the conservative bureaucrats. This is a difficult but strategic task for socialists today. We need to take back our unions and turn them into organizations of militant class struggle. A central piece in this battle is to kick cops out of our unions. We need to take the lead of rank and file members of MLK County Labor Council, Writers Guild East, and PSC CUNY, who pushed for these resolutions in their unions. Police are our class enemy. They have no place in the House of Labor. But we need to go beyond that. We need a party of workers and people of color independent of the Democrats and Republicans. A party that fights for socialism. I can only imagine the enormous difference it would make if in the current political climate there were a truly revolutionary party on the streets with the working class. With Left Voice, we're trying to help prepare fertile ground for such a party to grow in the US. One that can lead the fight for a society in which resources are distributed by need and not profit, and in which prisons, the police, can be done away with permanently.